All right, thanks everybody, and thanks everyone joining by Zoom for our final reading in this series of conversations in creative nonfiction. And today we're welcoming our guest Isaac Fitzgerald. Isaac is the New York Times bestselling author of Dirtbag, Massachusetts, that has the best first line of any book I've read in a while. And if you show me a better one, I dare you. He appears frequently on the Today Show and is the author of the best-selling children's book, How to Be a Pirate, as well as the author of Pen and Ink, Tattoos and the Stories Behind Them, and Knives and Ink, Chefs and the Stories Behind Their Tattoos, winner of an IACP award. His writing has appeared in the New York Times, The Atlantic, Esquire, The Guardian, The Best American Non-Required Reading, and numerous other publications. He lives in Brooklyn. We're so grateful to him for joining us today. He is currently at work on his next book, American Dionysus. We're gonna have to bring Isaac in for a special workshop on how to title a book. Holy shit. Wow. Forthcoming from Knopf. And a special thanks, as always, to Saeed Jones. Saeed, our artist in residence. This is such an extraordinary series that we've been able to have, thanks to Saeed, that has taken us not only into writing, into nonfiction, into memoir, but also about friendship and community and the conversations that have been going on for so long that Saeed and Isaac now are welcoming us into, and I think inspiring us all with. So thanks so much to you both.
Thank you, Jason. Hi, everyone on the internet. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. You could be anywhere, so I'm grateful that you wanted to be here with these two jokesters, Isaac and I. This is my best brother. He is my best friend. I love him so much. We're gonna cry so much. I warned y'all. You see it. I told you. Okay. Believe the hype. No, this is really good. We're both, of course, going to read some new work. I'm very nervous. I've got to say, this is the most nervous I've been. This is what I'm going to read. I'm freaking me out. And he will not let me read his work in progress. So I'm not saying I came up with this Invent series just so I could hear from American Dionysus, but like that was one of the perks. But we're gonna read and then talk about some language we talk about, like the laboratory of our friendship of over a decade now. I think it's 12 years or so.
And how much, as much as I don't share my work with Saeed, it still contributes to the work that I do, and I'm really excited to talk to you about that.
Oh my gosh!
I'm not gonna lie, I was gonna read the section about you. But then I realized you cry too much at the beginning, so I'm gonna hold that. And that was such a torturous thing I just did. But the way I'm gonna help is that I'm gonna go first, because I know you are nervous to read what you're about to read. So I'll go first, but I won't put you in tears. But just know after this section, there's a lot about you that'll put you in tears. So this is all you need to know before we jump in, which is that the book is about John Chapman, also known as Johnny Appleseed. Yes, he's a real guy. Paul Bunyan was not. Pecos Bill was not. Johnny Appleseed was. He was born very near where I grew up, and I had an obsession with him since childhood. And after a small mentee bee, let's say, in 2020, something happened. I can't remember what. I started walking a lot. And so he's this great walker. And so I decided to kind of walk in his footsteps and follow his trail throughout Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana. Now, did it help that my best friend was currently living in Ohio? How much of an excuse was this book just to go visit Saeed? Maybe a lot. So I'm on my way to Saeed's, but my car had broken down. And so I just got it fixed and I'm on the road. Shut up. The day I lost, or maybe lost isn't the right word, the day I spent sitting quietly, serenely, contemplatively in that town meant I was a day behind schedule. I was crossing into Ohio and the sun was setting and I didn't have the faintest idea where I was going to sleep that night. While much fanfare is given to how much time Johnny Appleseed spent sleeping outdoors, often by a fire, with his feet pointed at the flame to keep warm, or in a hollowed out stump for a few winters, the truth is, he often ended up sleeping at a stranger's house, and more often than that, at a friend's. After leaving Pennsylvania and heading into Ohio, John Chapman began walking in what could almost be described as seasonal circles, hundreds of miles each year, checking in on his nurseries and planting new ones, sharing seeds, and over time, building up relationships with the farmers, settlers, and homesteaders who lived more grounded lives than he did. A rambling man, Chapman would share news from other parts of the region and spread Swedenborg's teaching. That's his religion. We don't have time to get into that right now. It is said that he loved children and would often impress young ones with feats of daring do, such as showing off the toughness of his oft unshoed feet, walking on hot coals, and even sticking his gruff, hardened soles with needles. Many of the firsthand accounts we have of John Chapman come from children who were adults by the time of his death and were still around to be interviewed by the time of his growing fame in the late 1800s. He was born in like 1776. He dies in like 1840 something. One such child turned out was Rosella Rice, an author and poet born in Perrysville, Ohio in 1827. Rice once described a visit from Chapman at her family's farm. We can hear him read now, just as he did that summer day when we were busy quilting upstairs and he lay near the door, his voice rising and thrilling, strong and loud as the roar of wind and waves, then soft and soothing as the balmy airs that quivered the morning glory leaves about his gray beard. His was a strange eloquence at times, and he was, undoubtedly, a man of genius. In the days before radio, television, and the internet, why not let a wandering nomad who plants apple orchards and carries messages from heaven, along with a healthy dose of mysticism and a love of nature, into your home? Some Christianish entertainment in exchange for a bit of food and a warm hearth, not to mention a bit of good karma. Did some people even at the time find Chapman odd? Of course. But oftentimes, odd is better than bored. The man may have been sleeping in a hammock slung between two trees the night before. Why not let him inside and hear a few of his stories? I've never signed a lease in my entire life, something I'm oddly proud of. Paperwork has always worried me. Signing something always feeling like it's somehow infringing on my God-given freedom, something I cherish above all other things. But John Chapman did me one better, never having a fixed address for his entire adult life. Not even a lean-to or shoddy cabin, only the aforementioned hollowed out stump. And even that was only for a few seasons. I'll go on for a little bit here, but I just want to say things take a turn for somebody that rambles around that much. Commenting on Chapman's traversing Ohio back and forth until at least the 1830s, the historian Howard Means writes in Johnny Appleseed, The Man, the Myth, the American Story, he is welcomed in many homes along the way, as he always had been. But on more than a few occasions, reservations crept in. According to one family tradition, the proprietor of a tavern on a river in Lowell, Ohio, recorded in his diary that Chapman would arrive annually on his migrations back and forth to Western Pennsylvania. The proprietor wrote that he would feed Chapman without charge, then point him to the barn for the night, so that his quote unquote wee beasties, i.e. lice, would not contaminate the other guests. Even saints don't last forever. But I, for one, appreciate a saint who shows the wear and tear of time, not lofty, above reproach and suffering, but down amongst the people, sometimes living in a shed in your backyard, Jesus himself born in a manger. My friend Matt Summel is one of those mad saints of America. There you go. Yeah. My friend Mad Summel is one of those mad saints of America who bounces around the country so much that it can actually make this massive expanse of dirt between the Atlantic and Pacific seem small. When I first met him, he was holding down a rent-controlled apartment in LA that was more like a cabin on a ship than a sought-after living space in one of America's major cities. He shared the small space with 2 dogs so close to death that I more than once caught myself holding a hand up to their nose to check if they were breathing. They leaked fluids of every kind and had faces that almost made my heart hurt when I looked directly at them. But Matt loved them mightily. His whole day was planned around their care. Matt had a history of taking in stray dogs, or sometimes birds, or even more exotic animals that nobody would love except for him. Or at least that's how it seemed. A noble calling, holy work. So it should come as no surprise that the first time I stayed at Matt's place, it's only because a mutual friend told him I needed a place to stay. The same day even. By that night, Matt and I were drunk, him in his bed that was simply a bit of bedding in a cubbyhole in his wall, and I snoring on his couch. We were fast friends, as for the record, Saeed and I were. And I got 2 more paragraphs here, and then we're cutting to you, baby. Other than strays and ugly dogs in need of love, Matt also collected vehicles, or perhaps clunky toys would be a better way to put it. Vans, campers, motorcycles, always with a sidecar for his pups, or sometimes myself. He always drove safer with the dogs, helmets strapped to our heads. Matt would rip me through the hills of Los Angeles at speeds that had me gripping the metal bar in front of me as Matt took a corner at a speed that lifted the sidecar off the ground. Matt's bike at such an angle that his knee was grazing the pavement as I yelled out into the night, a tremendous yop that I tried to play off as bravery, but was an animalistic release of fear and joy and something deeper. Every living creature needs to yell at the sky, the moon, the stars, to scream at the universe, at God, I am here. For a brief moment, I'm lifted into the dark night and everything is still. All anxiety is cleansed. Just a perfect moment of high-speed serenity. When my yell fades from my mouth, I am at peace. Which is when Matt shifts his weight, an artist of movement, and slams the sidecar back onto the pavement, letting out a wild bellow of his own, leaving me to wonder how nobody has called the cops. Anyways, I go to stay with Matt and we sleep in a shed in his backyard, and it's a lot of other stuff that happens. But then eventually I make my way to Saeed, but you'll have to buy the book to get that part.
We have so much to talk about. I didn't know Matt was showing up in your book, but now it makes a lot of sense. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to read, a really vulnerable vignette from my memoir in progress, Home Out There, which is about leaving home to arrive at an understanding of home. And so you see a lot of journeys along the way. And I'll just say that I have a Substack newsletter. And so I wrote a version of what you're about to read that was accurate, but it was not the truth. And this version is the truth, which of course is always more complicated. It's called Personhood. Columbus, Ohio, October 2018. The morning after we arrive, I wake up a bit early, slip past Isaac's door without knocking to see if he's awake too. I tell myself I'm going to get breakfast, which is true, but some drowned part of me knows that what I actually want is to be awake and moving around without straining to have a conversation. Just outside the hotel, I inhale the crisp air, then take a second, deeper breath. I'm steeling myself, preparing for the day ahead. It's become harder and harder to be a person. I wear my body like a borrowed jacket. I put in my AirPods and walk towards the McDonald's a couple of blocks away. It feels good to be moving through this breeze. Doesn't it feel good, Saeed? I say to myself, like I'm my own caretaker. Take in another breath. Isn't that nice? It is nice. I'm mortified by how nice it is. Pushing through the door into the restaurant's manufactured cheer, I notice a group of old Black men sitting at a table by a window. The 3 of them sip their coffee, page through newspapers, laughing at something one of them has read aloud to the others. Deep black laughter, hearty laughter, the way old heads laugh in barbershops, the way Ajax and his friends laugh in Sula when he sees young Sula and Nell on the street and mutters, pig meat, a secret, circled laughter. When the men at the table notice me, they let their chuckles settle and say, good morning, young man, almost in unison. Their postures change, kings receiving tribute. I smile and politely nod. I realize I still have my AirPods in, and even though the men have turned back toward each other, I take them out. It feels rude to be wearing AirPods inside the bright proximity of their company, like wearing a baseball cap inside a church. I want to be awake inside this room. The black teen working the register smiles as I approach, as does his coworker. I've forgotten who I was just outside the door of this fast food restaurant, the meager-spirited stranger trying to breathe and walk his way out of sadness. I take my order and carry the loud, warm image of those men with me out into the morning. I'm a person when I walk back into the hotel. And I'm actually myself when Isaac and I meet up a bit later in the lobby to go over our agenda for the day. At the North Market, where we're taping a segment, someone points out the Christmas tree by the entrance, cleverly disguised as a fall harvest tree at the moment. Isaac does a little riff on some of the tree's future costume plans. Do you remember that? Yeah. And I laugh without having to think. This is the part where I laugh. I'm scared to ask him if he notices a difference in me. If I draw too much attention to my fresh ease, it might vanish again. I might vanish again. The day before our flight to Columbus from New York, I caught myself staring at my bathtub while brushing my teeth. I've only taken a few long baths since I moved into this apartment. The bathtub is so big and deep that by the time it's full enough for me to reasonably climb inside, the water is always lukewarm. The apartment costs more than $4,000 a month. I got it because of the bathtub. And because I can reach the office in 10 or 15 minutes, essential when you're hosting a live morning show. I'm able to wake up, get dressed, and make it to our 7 a.m. production meeting before I'm conscious enough to process just how dead I feel behind my skin mask. Lately, though, I keep thinking about my bathtub. The thought is a daydream as much as it is a waking terror. I keep seeing flashes of myself way down at the bottom, buried under all that lukewarm water. I haven't told anyone, not even my therapist. The closest I've been able to get so far is admitting how much I look forward to getting blackout drunk most nights. How do you feel when you're wasted? My therapist asked recently. I don't feel anything, and I love it. The brief absences of personhood the blackouts grant me are like coming up for air, gasping, sputtering, coughing after being held underwater for too long. The relief never lasts, and it's all so costly. Sometimes when people are talking to me, and I can feel just how far away I am from being a person, I hear water pouring into that bathtub, spilling out over the rim, pooling on the tiles. I know that if I told anyone that my mind wants to kill me, it would impact the show and all the people who work on the show and depend on it to pay their bills and take care of their families. I've met some of their kids. I can't let them down. It would mean I failed Isaac, that I failed our friendship, that I abandoned him in plain sight. Or even worse, I could tell someone that my mind wants to kill me, and the cost-benefit analysis would result in nothing changing at all. That would be a basement under hell. So I say nothing. I steel myself against my days, interview celebs and influencers I won't remember the following week, travel across the country pretending to be alive and curious about the world, overjoyed to be able to explore America alongside my best friend and a cameraman. It's not sustainable, but it's the road I'm on nonetheless. This trip is different though. I laugh and smile and mean it, feel it. I notice tattoos on Isaac's arms I swear I haven't seen before. My body isn't borrowed. It's mine. All mine. There is a small flame of a soul in here, slight but growing, pulling oxygen into its heart, pressing heat against the inside of my skin. It's autumn in Ohio, and the trees throw up their hands in all kinds of colors. On a bus to the OSU game, I'm embarrassed when Isaac yells, OH, but shocked and delighted when every single person on the bus yells back, I-O, at the top of their lungs. We laugh. We all laugh. Questions, sincere questions begin to pour out of me during the trip. How did you end up living in Columbus? What's it like living here? Please tell me more. What do you love about your life here? I forgot what it felt like to be alive inside my questions, to regard them as open doors. We're so busy running all over the city, from tailgating parties to the zoo to local shops and cafes. It's a while before I even realized the true gift of my time in Columbus. Not once, as we weave through the city, do I hear water pouring into that bathtub. As I slide into a booth for lunch, I hear instead the memory of those old men laughing. I tell Isaac about them while looking for something on my phone. Though I don't say as much, I realize that I'd like to live long enough to become an old man who can sip coffee and laugh at the newspaper with my best friend. I don't yet know how to become that man, but I'd like to try. I look up when I realize he's gotten very quiet. When I meet his intense stare, Isaac finally says, Saeed, people are going to be real up and thrown when you move to Columbus. Thank you. I think the sex scenes are the scary things to write.
No. It's the intimate scenes. Not to mention, now I'm like, damn, I really should have read my part.
I would be under the table.
Yeah, no, but that was pretty good. That was very, very good. And now you live.
I live in Cambridge.
In Cambridge.
Quite happily, yeah.
Different part, but on the same street.
Right, on the same street that you grew up on.
That I grew up on. Mass Ave.
Yeah.
Mass Ave. I mean, to be fair, it's a very big and long street. But hang on, give it up again for Saeed Jones. I'm really excited about this book, and I'm really excited to talk to you about it because again, as always, we find ourselves talking about similar things.
It's bizarre.
Because we talk about these things, I think, a lot.
Yeah.
While at the same time, understanding that there's room for our different ways of looking at these things. But the way you describe this book, which is trying to find a home, is 100% what my book is about as well.
Yeah.
And it's in these two very, very different ways.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the first time I've gotten to read work from you that is like history, the archives, and you setting your gaze on, through time, and wanderers. I mean, Isaac and I have always half joked that like we're like the Lost Boys. I think that was something we bonded over very quickly, and and I remember meeting Isaac and being like, I have nothing in common with this man. Like it was, I was just like, there's no way. I remember the flannel shirt you were wearing, but
no, lean into it. Say the whole thing. But flannel shirt, tattoos, cowboy boots.
You used to carry a knife everywhere.
Well, again, still would if we didn't,
You've lost a lot in TSA over the
there's
years.
a lot that got lost at TSA. But no, when we first met, you were very much like.
I was like, I don't know. But I'm really grateful. And that was 2011.
Right.
It's incredible. You look up one day and you're like, damn, we've known each other through very different iterations of our lives. So this is incredible. And then I'm fascinated by Johnny Depp. I don't know a lot about him aside from, I remember, I guess the Disney animation is like the image I have
100%
in my head. And it's so long ago because I remember I felt like I watched that and it was like Disney Songs of the South was also still very common. Like it's that far, in the rearview mirror. It's really fascinating. And of course, we talk about, the work I've been doing in terms of learning about Polly Murray and Langston Hughes and bringing people from the past into the present.
Well, so that's why I do want to talk, like, again, we are both writers who focus on the personal. One of the lines from the section on Saeed is I say, we've been in a conversation for 15 years. It's been nonstop. And I think a lot of, especially our early friendship, was figuring out stuff from our childhood, was figuring out the loss of your mother, was figuring out the difficulties of coming of age. And you see those reflected in How We Fight for Our Lives and Dirtbag Massachusetts. But
and I'll add, like, in ways, and this has always been vital for my friendship with Isaac, because, like, have you met straight white men? I was always, you know, I feel this way about Jason too. I'll say this just to fully embarrass Jason in front of everyone. Roxanne Gay was like, he's not gay. We were like on our way to dinner. She was like, Saeed, he has 2 cats. I was like, I know. But I, you know, it's one of the ways Isaac saved my life, frankly, was helping provide a sense of hope that there are men out there who don't mean us harm. That there are men out there who change, who grow, you know, who are willing to admit. I think you're one of those, you know, people, you know, willing to you know what I mean? Like, and that was world shattering to me in the early 2010s. So now, you know what I mean? Like, deep in our friendship, but really it was like, you know, I enjoyed our early friendship and our time together. And you're right, it was like we started talking, you know, at a bar in Soho and then never stopped. But also, I think, we were like trying to, I keep thinking of Johnny walking around, like, retrace the steps. Like, how is it that we're connecting in this way? You know, in America, I mean, you see, they're like really trying to like violently resegregate us. And I think Isaac and I have always been interested in how we found each other. Why is this connection so strong?
And why is that connection so real? Real quick, Jason, just to have your back a little bit. Just so you know, Sharon Stone said the same thing about me. So,
that's true.
Respects, you know,
it's
tough out there. It's tough out there for us. You know, not as tough as it is for other people, mayhaps, but just, you know, who can compare, you know, difficulties, right?
And just like that, another podcast was born.
See, I kept that one on the inside. And that's called growth, because this is recorded. No, but you're absolutely correct. But I want to just say, so we do have this focus on ourselves and our relationship and the ways that it comes out in the work. But I want to ask you real quick, tell me about research, because that has been a new, like, there has been journalism and there has been interviews and we have done a lot of work, but there is, and you especially, both here at Harvard, and I know you've gone to some other places too. Am I right? Tell me if I'm wrong, but am I right in assuming this is the first time that you've been like in archives looking for stuff?
Yes.
What is that process? But like, you are an outdoor cat. What has it been like? To put on your little spectacles. You're like, to be like, like you got a little cat tweed jacket and you're doing your research. What's that been like?
Funny. Well, one, I've fallen in love with the smell of old paper. It's a very specific smell. If you've been in those art, you could, like, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's either you like it or you don't. But it's yes, it is. So, I mean, one, it makes me feel youthful. I think one, and I wonder if
these old motherfuckers dead as hell. No, wait, not that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, because there's so much to learn, and I think, you know, whatever you're doing in your discipline, when you kind of, you know, try to go more ambitious or try to strike out in a you know, just like, I mean, I know how to write like a linear, you know, narrowly focused, this is my coming, I can write that memoir, I can write that essay in my sleep, you know, like this, as vulnerable as it is, was like a very easy essay for me to write technically. Research, I mean, it requires time, it requires travel, and I think I wonder if it requires like luck. I've been thinking of like my ancestors and just like sheer luck. And I guess this is part of time too, where you just like, I was talking to like our friend Maggie Smith last night, where I was like, I've been stuck for months on this really difficult, I'm trying to be polite because this is recorded, a technical challenge with a historian who's made some choices in terms of how he writes about someone in the book. I really don't like.
That is the most diplomatic I've ever heard you be in my entire life.
Well, this is my
Growth,
second. This is my
growth.
second semester at Harvard Medical School.
Yeah.
I've
Sorry,
learned-
keep going, keep going.
I've learned some. I read
That
the
was
Crimson too,
beautiful.
girl. Yeah,
That was
thank
good.
you,
I'm
thank
proud of you.
Y'all
Sorry,
go
keep
get
going.
me.
Keep going.
And yeah, and so it's really been, you know, I've been talking to my editor, like, how do I do, you know, it's like The Wire, you know, you come at the king, you best not miss. It's like kind of how I felt. And it's like months, it's just been haunting me. You know, I'll wake up in the middle of the night, just like, how should I do it? Should I just not even try? And
Which is always a temptation.
Totally.
Maybe I can just
Just
leave
like-
that in the drawer. We
yeah,
can just
and so-
smooth right over it.
So one thing I will say, one takeaway is I have such respect for biographers and historians, for people who, because it is really difficult, particularly, for example, writing about queerness, if you're right, even race. I mean, you know, like the language changes, like people, you know, it's really, I can see a lot of things that if you're looking from the outside, you're like, how could they mess up? You know what I mean? It's like, it's so easy to criticize, and sometimes that criticism is deserved. But now I'm like, I don't know. There's a lot of ways you can do like 9 things right, and then that one misstep. So that's part of it. But yeah, I was like just sitting at my desk, and I realized that I was trying to find a specific book by Terrence Hayes, wholly unrelated. It was just for the podcast. I read poems every week. And I was like, where's this book? Is it back in storage in Columbus? And so I just decided to buy all the books, and I found a random book of his that I didn't know he had written about Etheridge Knight. Just again, I'm just like, this is a side quest. It has nothing to do with, you know, and I found a passage where he critiques in such elegant way the very historian that I like couldn't believe. I was like, what are the, you know what I mean? And yeah, so it's there's something, it's beautiful, it's emotional. That gets, like, I teared up because I was just like, oh, I never would have found this otherwise. You know what I mean? So have you had moments like that?
100%. The luck of it is such an important thing to comment on, but also the realization that many other people have been here before. Even when you think you're talking about something that you're like, oh, I have this little thing, or there's this little aspect of this that nobody else knows, and I'm going to share it with them. It's like, oh no, you got to realize that many other people, way more people than you even can understand, probably care about this, have done these things before. And when you find those moments of like, oh wait, this person's already done it better, it's beautiful because you are still telling your story, and now you get to highlight this thought by another thinker. And again, you can't just make it all that. But every once in a while, when you get to kind of hold that thing up, just real quick, follow me for a second, but I'm going to do a quick segue. One of the ways in which I learned how to write from Saeed, which is, I call them Saeedisms. He's heard me say this 100 times. But when I write something, I then look through for enough quotable lines that sound really good, because he's a poet. And if in my work I don't find that, I'm like, oh, it's time to add Saeedisms. So then I go back and I add these lines that I'm like, this is powerful and meaningful. They just fall out of him. That's a pain in the ass as a friend. That just comes naturally to him. But I get to then go back and like, how do I find these moments where I can highlight and elevate some of my writing so it feels like that? End segment, back to. Now with this research, this new muscle that we're learning how to use, it's like, oh, here's an example of, it's not my Saeedism, it's somebody else's. But when you place it in that powerful moment, you're both elevating them, calling people back to work that might have been overlooked, while at the same time making a point, which, let's be honest, I might have been stuck on for 3 months trying to figure, and I wouldn't have said it half as good as this person that I discovered that already said it. So that is a meaningful part of learning how to both, again, it's a special thing we're doing because we're not straight biography. Like one thing, somebody's like, oh, John, like, are you doing biography? I'm like, no, Ron Chernow can do the like 10,000 page Johnny, like the real deal thing. I'm telling the story of his with hopefully some new insights that people don't understand, that I've come across or interviewed people, but it's still my story threaded out throughout. And what's beautiful about that is that it does allow for these moments of like, oh wait, here is somebody who I found, usually by luck, that said it so much better than I could ever put into words. And so one thing that I'll say about that, a more of a funny story.
Wait, before you say
Yeah,
that,
yeah, go ahead.
This is what I mean. Like why I think Isaac is an extraordinary friend, but also an extraordinary man, because traditional masculinity has an innate austerity and isolationism to it. Right. Traditional masculinity says, I'm a genius. I did this on my own. I got here on my own. I didn't need anybody's help. I don't have any mentor. You know what I mean? Like
What was that last bit? I don't have any men.
I don't have any mentors.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're gonna say mental health issues?
Well,
no.
What'd you say? Minty B? I was like, oh, that's cute. Sounds like a breath mint. But you know that there's a type of male auteur, you know, and you go to the after talk after a film, and they don't mention like a single mentor, mentee, collaborate. You're like, do you even talk to other, you know? And so it's so striking to me because like that to me, this is the way we're talking about this work. You know, I got it from Black feminist thought, you know, from queer thought, this sense of collaboration and community. And why would I ever be ashamed of acknowledging that I learned from someone else who's done this? You know, I was like working on a part of the book. I think I read it with Roxane Gay, and Langston Hughes's father was incredibly he was Black as well and anti-Black, and I was just like it was like someone. And then I went back to a book I hadn't read since college by Toy Derricott, The Black Notebook. She writes about being a white passing Black woman, and at one point she says racism is child abuse, and I was like, thank you. You know what I mean? Like I was like running back to the computer to weave Toy's book, you know, into mine. Why would I feel competitive or like, damn, she did it, so now I can't, you know? But that I do feel that is like not just a type of writing. You see that in the workplace. You know, people take credit for things and they don't want to, you know what I mean? So I wanted to acknowledge that because Isaac is someone who says all boats rise. And I've always seen him demonstrate. And there's a reason like Ashley C. Ford, who was here last month, Roxane Gay, you know, like these are people who will say the same thing I do. Isaac celebrates other people. And so I love to hear that as you're doing this new facet of writing, that ethos is showing up like on the page. It was clear.
And it's exciting. It's exhilarating. Like that's the thing. You don't want, why hide your work when you can actually show your work and put other people up? Now, don't get me wrong. There's also going to be people that come after you for it, because that's the other thing that happens in this stuff.
Well,
and
that's why I'm here. Like,
no, but that is my funny story, which is, so one of the things I did is I found that there was a farm league baseball team out in Indiana in Fort Wayne called the Tin Caps, which is John. Oh. So there's this Johnny Apple. I'm sorry to disappoint you all on this one. That one's pretty made up. He didn't actually walk around with a pot. Mainly the reason we know that is because people didn't put handles on pots until after he died. It was more of a metal bowl thing that you would kind of grab with whatever you had. Anyways, I interviewed the guy that basically was in charge of naming the team the Tin Caps, because for a very long time they had all these different names, and then they're like, it's the 2000s, we got to come into the modern age, and so they had all these different things. I won't bore you with everything.
I'm scared to know what the previous names.
Nope, we're not going there. Right, read the book. Listen, they did a good job. They stepped towards God's light. And they named it the Tin Caps.
It is a cute name.
It's a great name, but here's the thing. He was like, I was like, so how'd it go? How'd it play out? It's amazing. And again, just for the record, spoiler alert, they sell more merch that first year than anyone. They also win like the Farm League World Series. Like they had it worked out for them. But he was like, oh yeah, I didn't know any of that at the time. And he's like, he just looked at me and he just went, oh, well, you'll find out. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, oh, a lot more people care about Johnny Appleseed than you think.
Yeah.
And he was like, we named it the Tin Caps, and people ripped, like people were calling in from other countries to be like, the handles weren't invented in the 18th. Who do you think you are to name, like people get mad in a way. Yeah. Like, so like you also like, it's a way of, anyways, that's all to say. It's a way of highlighting other people's work, but it's also a way of being like, I am part of an ongoing narrative about this history. Yes. Because
that's complicated.
Because so many people think that they're the ones that have it right. And that is built into mine. I'm sure you have some of this in yours too, which is like, it's all legends. These are all stories we tell, even our own personal narratives, even the books we wrote the first time around are like everything we think of as history is at least partially a little bit made up or wrong or right, but not right in the way that is comfortable in this moment. And I just think that's a massive part of it. So I wanted to ask real quick, because you recently went to do research on Baldwin.
Yeah.
And you shared some photos. Like, I'm excited. We haven't talked about this yet. This is just me like asking about, like, tell me about that trip. Tell me about finding those photos. And if I'm being honest, like, I've seen a million photos of James Baldwin, but they're kind of the same ones over and over. And the ones you shared felt so intimate. There was one where he's smiling in a way that I've rarely seen before. So what were those, like, what's the story?
I posted the photos on my Instagram, so you can check them out. They are really great. Yeah, it was again another side quest. It was, like a paid book event. I was like, okay, whatever. I agreed months ago, and I was like, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Because Baldwin will inevitably be in the book, but he's not like a major figure
one of the three, right?
In the book. Yeah, he's not one of the three.
Who are the three, real quick? Sorry,
Langston Hughes, Pauli Murray, and Audre Lorde. And just as an aside to your point, I mean, and I think there are like limits to how much we can like foresee and anticipate and try to like dodge, the criticisms. But yeah, I was at an event just last week, and I said like basically what I said to you, and I was like, Black queer people leaving home to find home, and I write about 3 Black queer poet ancestors. I said their names, and then I went on. That was just like the second sentence of my whole talk. And then there was like a symposium, several events, and like the next one starting in the room. It's all happened. It was a big room, but still. And this older woman came and like sat down and like couldn't wait, like sat down and was like, "You referred to Langston Hughes as queer," and like my grandson, like just, and she was kind, and but like really earnestly was like, it was a dilemma, and I was like, I don't have time for that right now. But yeah, so there are these things.
It's people feel very strongly.
They feel
about
very strongly.
Keeping the stories that they believe in.
Yes. Yeah. So so much of that. But yeah, so this is technically last year's James Baldwin centennial. He was born in 1924, and so I was invited to Bowling Green State University, which is in Ohio, to be the keynote speaker for to end their like year of centennial celebrations, which was of course an incredible honor. And I was like, cool. Kind of random though. Why Bowling Green? Like I was like, I don't, you know what I mean? I was like, this is. I didn't know of any association he had with them, and so I just thought they were doing what all institutions should do, which is celebrate all aspects of history all the time. And why wouldn't you celebrate James Baldwin? That's how I came. And then they were like, oh no, he was here for a while. I was like, when? And as it turns out, he was a guest professor there. He was kind of like artist in residence there on and off from 1977 to 1981, and taught several classes, gave lectures, did interviews. If you Google like James Baldwin Bowling Green State, like their archives, wonderfully, it's online. So all the things I saw, you can see the interviews are incredible. And like it's like real, like, whoa, like one. Like in a class, and there were like you see also there were a lot of Black students there at the time, not so much now, but one Black student in a class asked him why he uses the N-word in his work, like why does it appear, and it's like, whoa, yeah, and he goes, it's incredible, so things that I'm like, I haven't even seen this in the essay from him, so that was fascinating, but also. At this point, he's famous. He's famous. He dies within the decade. He dies in the 80s. So I want to make it clear, like this is as famous as James Baldwin, he was a celebrity. He was on late night TV. And it turns out Bowling Green State University was just the first university after he had been in Europe that gave him a reasonable offer for a teaching position. That's why he was there. And he liked it. And so I had no idea that we all talk about like Baldwin's time in Europe and coming back. He went to Ohio. He went to the school that welcomed him. And so, yeah, I was texting with Eula Biss, who was here in October. And I was like doing the writer's lament of I'm not writing enough. I'm traveling so much. And that was interesting. And she was like, Saeed, you're writing as usual. Like, this is it. This is part of it as well. And yeah, one of the article headlines is like Baldwin being like, I've come home to BGSU. It was incredible. Totally
and that's the thing. You discovered, like you said, getting back to that luck aspect of it, you discover things as you're kind of out there in the world. I I do want to say that I also wasn't aware of that story. And so like that's another part of this that I think is so important about like unearthing things throughout history is like you are able to then talk like if it's not new to everybody, it never is. There's always going to be somebody that knows it better than you, but it's so easy to get caught up in this idea of like, okay, so then why me? Am I the right person to? But the fact of the matter is that nobody can share your perspective, especially if you're writing a more integrated memoir history. Nobody's going to be able to kind of put your spin on the story. And it's so easy to set up a boundary to yourself, which is, oh, I'm not smart enough to talk about this. Like I was not a John Chapman scholar by
I
any
felt the same way when I started writing the Langston. It like things. I was like, I'm not a historian. I don't even. How do I even take notes? What do I? Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is you're going to figure out things or find new things and bring new things that again becomes part of a big conversation. And I'm not trying to just put a bow on this, but to bring it into the Harvard Medical School of it all. Like, watch this.
Yeah.
That's the same way that scientific progress gets made, right? It's actually all same things. It's different conversations. It's people being, there was a time when we thought we knew something and we knew it. And then it turned out leeches weren't as cool as we thought they were. Sorry, that lets you know how much I go to the doctor. That's a long time ago one. There's probably more current examples.
I've got to take you upstairs to show you all the creepy stuff on the 5th floor. Remind me after.
Absolutely not. But it's all these people contributing to this conversation that marches closer and closer to truth. Now, is actual truth, like, is that something that's attainable? Who knows? But it's getting closer and closer. And the more that you add your voice to it, the more that it brings it towards that way. Even mistakes, even things like even the Tin Cat, right? That's the Tin Cat baseball team is still great. And it still gets way more people interested in John Chapman. Now, did he wear a tin cap? No. But does that really matter at this farm league $5 a ticket? Let's have family fun pretzel days. Of course not. But like actually they then have a statue and they then tried to do more archive research and they brought money to this thing that had been oft ignored. And it's there's a lot of different ways to walk this path. I would say.
Gosh, you've sparked so many things. Well, so one, it's helped me understand that, you know, even our books, which were, you know, published in the last few years, our memoirs, are also historical artifacts. And I think that's helped me understand, you know, like Polly Murray was born as a girl, was mostly in same-sex relationships, did not think of themselves as a lesbian, thought of themselves as a man. I mean, it's so complicated. Towards the end of their life, you know, we're talking like 50s, 60s, was trying to get like male hormone treatment. You know, it was very clear. And I own right now, I think 4 biographies, autobiographies, and each of them have different pronouns. Like each of them have a different. Everyone has a different, and that's another months-long conundrum that I think yesterday I'll tell you at dinner that I'm like figuring out how do I do this, because the language changes. Each of those writers wrote those books thoughtfully in good faith at a different point in time in our understanding of gender and, you know, and it's just difficult and it's dynamic. And so, yeah, it's really interesting. But also, I think, I also wanted to acknowledge, thank you for the residency, my research assistant, Christian Gines, because that's part of it too. I have a research assistant. Wow. He is an undergraduate student. He is so brilliant. He is so brilliant. And that's been helpful as well. Just being like, dude, like how, you know, he's helped me fact check. He's helped me. I've been like, we've got it. It's funny to be like, I need more gay proof. I need more gay proof on Langston Hughes. I'm like, I know this is a weird thing to ask, but I need people. And he was able to find more gay proof.
That's I just period. End of sentence. You're just like, I just name it gay proof for anything. Sorry, keep going.
Christian's the best. And he was able to find like this collection of unpublished speeches and essays by Audre Lorde. And she starts by saying, if you're reading the work of Langston Hughes, you're reading the work of a Black gay man. And I was like, oh my God, I know, you know. And so just think, you know, so it's truly, you're right. It's whether it's the work, the textual work of other people, you know, they can only get so far down the road. You know, we understand queerness, gender, mental health, you know, so much better. And you go, okay, I see why you did it based on that time. And I truly take it in good faith. Like I'm not, and then, but I want to try to take it a little bit further, but also, yeah, it's your colleagues, it's friends, Polly Murray, like I'd heard the name before, but it was my friend Hannah Scruggs here, who's a historian, and AAS was like, oh, Polly totally fits into what you're talking about. So yeah, so it's your friends, it's your mentees. You never know. I mean, it's sometimes I feel like the best thing you can do, and I guess I want to ask you this about spirituality.
God, I was about to do
because
in my head, I was like, I'm going to take him to faith after this. It's going to be great. Sorry, go ahead. You beat me to it.
Because I do feel like sometimes the best thing you can do for your writing is live. Is live with an openness and understand that that's a part of the practice as well. And this book, I'm definitely seeing, like, it's not like a theme in the book, but it's a theme in the research. Like I mentioned, my ancestor spirituality is like emerging in a way. Like I feel like the hand on my shoulder, you know what I mean? And blessed by that. Did you, and obviously Faith, I mean, your first book is Dirtbag, your first memoir, excuse me, Dirtbag, Massachusetts, a confessional, it's very much about the Catholic organization and faith. And then clearly here we're getting into like Christian mysticism. Does it feel inevitable that you're writing about faith? Like, did you always like kind of assume?
I mean, again, and just like everything we're talking about and how fluid everything is, that question right now, or I'm sorry, that answer right now is yes. Yeah. But if you asked me 3 years ago, I mean, so the opening line, Jason praised the Dirtbag opening line, which thank you, which is, my parents were married when they had me, just to different people. And the opening line.
It's a slow burn. Yeah. You're like,
Hey. And the opening line to American Dionysus is, I've been praying a lot more and drinking a bit less than I used to. And because
we felt that.
Yeah. Well, it's the truth. It's
mood.
That's the answer to your question is yes. Now, 3 years ago, it would have been no, because I spent my entire life running away from my parents physically, mentally, spiritually. I was raised within the Catholic Church and I really wanted nothing to do with it. And now, and there's a million different reasons for probably why this is the case. I find myself, like a few years ago, I just found myself saying the Lord's Prayer on a regular basis. My parents, when they were having their affair, would go to the White Mountains in New Hampshire and go on long hikes that they would say, oh, it's a retreat and we're going with friends. And it was just them, of course. So they were really into walking. My dad, we didn't have any money. So that was vacation. My dad would just take me on these long, we'd sleep outside and he'd just tell me these never ending stories, which as I then watched movies later, and I was just like, he just took Star Wars and Camelot and just mashed that shit together, added a little Lord of the Rings. And he just had me going for days. And he would, it was very Irish storytelling. Like he would even, Johnny Appleseed was in there, like Minutemen. Why were they Minutemen? Because they could outrun bullets. That's not correct. And then I'd be in third grade saying that stuff. Anyways, but it doesn't change the fact that walking became this huge part of my life as I reached, sorry to say, I'll say middle age, hopefully. Whoa. It might be golden years. Who knows? That's a term everyone's like, I'm like, you don't know what you might have been middle-aged a long time ago, depending on how things go. Anyways, all I'm trying to say is I've gotten a lot more into faith and a lot more into walking. And so despite a life of almost running away from my parents, I now find myself drawn to the very two things that were the core of their personalities. And to be honest, the core of their love. And so I'm still trying to figure out, I mean, very similar to my mom, actually, like love the faith, don't love the institution is a phrase that I've been navigating. But that's why I love finding John Chapman. And again, I won't get into what Swedenborganism, just imagine, first off, they're still around. I celebrate Easter in the book with them. There's 5,000 of them still in the United States. They believing there's just a lot of ghosts. There's some cool stuff. Like their hell is like, oh, hell's not hell for bad people though. Because hell's like a biker bar where they fight all the time. And that's what bad people like to do. So in a way, hell for other people is heaven for them. They've got real interesting flaw. Anyways, I'm not going to do it yet. I can already tell some Swedenborg watching this. He's like, that motherfucker got that wrong. And I'm going to write him a letter. But all I'm trying to say is that as death becomes more a part of my life, and it always has been, but as it becomes more a part of my life, as my ability to admit how much I don't know becomes a part of my life, I find myself comforted by the ideas of faith, even if it is just the Lord's Prayer over, like, what is that? That's just a mantra. It's just something to repeat. But I have a very, very buzzy brain, and it's a way of calming me down. So I have really found myself drawn to it. And I'd love to hear about, like, again, I was raised in the Catholic worker right here in Boston. So the Cathedral of the Holy Cross is where I used to run around as a kid. Cardinal law, whole other story. But I was around a lot of that stuff. But I still find myself drawn to belief. And so I wonder for yourself and Murray, and like these, like, how do you find faith? You were raised Buddhist. How do you find faith kind of coming into your life? I mean, listen, first time he came and lived at my house for a little bit in San Francisco when I lived out there, and you were doing mantras at like 5 a.m. I was very hungover, and you were very loud.
You never told me I was loud.
I didn't know it needed to be told. But like, so you've always had an aspect of spirituality and that connection to your mother. But what does it look like in your life now?
Yeah, I was raised Nichiren Buddhist, in which the meditation is out loud. You chant.
Is that what Nichiren means? Loud as fuck? Sorry.
Namyo Renge-kyo does mean devotion to the mystic law of cause and effect through sound. So, like Tina Turner, who I share a birthday. Anyway, I was raised it was very rigorous. It was like you chant in the morning, you chant in the evenings. There was very ritualistic. There was like a lot of rules, like not in a restrictive way. There was just like, we do this because of this. Everything was, when you chant
cause
this
and
part, when you chant this part, you're supposed to turn to the east. Like, it was just like a whole lot of rigor and routine. And it just started making less sense. But something is cosmically, spiritually wrong in our culture. I just think I really, y'all don't need me to tell you that, but I'll just affirm that in you, something's wrong. I'm really smart. I really trust my intuitions and my emotions, and I feel fully out of my depth. I'm just like shook, so often. I mean, Christina and I will just be like, before lunch, it's just like, I don't know, girl, you know what I mean? Like, so the need to kind of like we're talking about, like with research, and you have that question, the need to like pull in the work of other people to reach out to your community. I feel that spiritually as well. And I don't know if it will become like a formal practice. I don't think I'll ever be a part of a religious organization again. It just really makes me uncomfortable for like 5,000 reasons. But yeah, there's something in myself and that sense of, there was a moment after, like, a week after the election, actually, to take it back to Columbia. And I know at some point we need to like wrap up or ask questions. So I'm like, how long have we even been here? Oh, okay. But like a week after I'll say it because I talked to you about this. A week after the election, obviously I was living here and reeling, and not surprised, but reeling nonetheless. And masked Nazis marched not just through Columbus and not just through my neighborhood. They marched like on the block I lived on for 5 years. On the block, like Isaac had like stayed in my like the first video I saw, I was confused because I was literally looking, you know what I mean? Like, and yelling the N-word and yelling anti-Semitic. It was just so upsetting. And actually not the first time Nazis have done stuff like that in Columbus in the last few years, but they were rejoicing because of the election. They understood what this meant for them and wanted to let us know, And my neighborhood traditionally, it was a gay neighborhood. There's so much. And I was beyond distressed. And I go on walks too now. I start going on walks. Isaac's been telling like, go for a walk. And I've been like, shut up. And I finally
shit helps.
And I was like walking. I was like, oh, I was like just walking. I was so distressed that day. I walked all the way to the ICA from Central Square, Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think it's like 3 hours. But early in the walk, there's a park over here, or excuse me, in Cambridge near me. And I just got to it and I just burst in because one, a Black woman friend of mine owns a business and was telling me about her experiences. She said, I'm just so glad Saeed isn't here. And just to think of this place that was such a refuge for me, it just felt so pointed. And I literally just looked at this guy. It was a bright blue day. And I just said, I'm asking for mercy. And I don't know who I was talking to. I didn't, but I was like, I believe there is an energy out there, that to respond to. So that's a long way of saying that I'm like, shit is crazy. And if it will help me take better care of myself and take better care of my students and my dear friends, I'm open to it because we on some new shit. This is, you know what I mean? Like this, I just think it's important to acknowledge that like we're all very capable people. I believe that's my sense. And I think, right, like a lot of what used to work for us in terms of strategies and resources, it doesn't feel like it. And so I see it in my work. I can't write the same kind of stuff. I can't research the same kind of stuff. And I can't live quite the same way either. Yeah.
I love the way you put it, which is the way that you reach out to other historians or other writers for that kind of community. You're reaching out to the universe for that, because everyone, that's what I think I just read that one. Like, people need to talk to the sky. I genuinely believe that. Yeah. And I genuinely, like, again, I'm not going to be here and be like Mr. Organized Religion either, but I do, like, you did used to gather everybody in the neighborhood, no matter your qualms. And there used to be a coming together that happened through that. So it's obviously I'm a open-ended, everyone should figure out what works for them for sure. But for myself, I do find myself looking for answers in the unobvious places these days is the way I would put it.
And like an acknowledgement of our shared reality. I think like what you were saying about like that way in which you're actually affirmed by being like, oh, other people have had these questions too. And with Home Out There, I was like, I don't think it's just me. Like, I don't think this is just like a Saeed became a person of, I was like, I feel there must be some systemic or historical reasons, and then reading, and it's just really striking, like reading about these three people, some who I know in different ways to different degrees, and the similarities are incredible. So
and then the theologian in me is like, three, you're looking for. Anyways, questions for the group before I Catholic it up too much.
3 is a good number. It's a good number.
And we can keep going, no pressure. I mean, we didn't even get to the front. I didn't even try to make it, because that's how much we had to talk about the new stuff.
I'm so proud of us.
I mean, we could do it.
Did you see that we were like full on like holding each other? And also,
if you want me to just try and make them cry, I can.
Don't do it. Okay. Some Zoom questions.
We have a Zoom question.
Where is the camera?
Right here.
Oh,
Brianna asked, Saeed, I know you're working on multiple books. Do you work on them simultaneously? Do you prioritize different projects at different times? How did you figure out what works for you?
Great question.
That is a great question. I was talking with Maggie Smith about this last night because she's doing it as well. Have you often worked on different books at once?
No.
I've always been like a one book kind of girl.
Yeah.
Until now. How do I prioritize? Well, one, because they're all at different stages in the process. Which means they're moving at different speeds, and they're all very different. So the People's Project, which comes out this fall, that I'm doing with Maggie Smith, is an anthology. And so thus far, we're about everyone. I think we've gotten everyone's work. It's been like emailing people, so that's just like in the same way that I'm emailing y'all, or with answering questions from Christine or Allison, it's reaching out to writers. Hey, that's been that function. Now it's time to do a little bit more writing for that. Maggie and I are going to have like a conversation that's threaded through the book.
I love that.
Obviously Home Out There is the most labor intensive and everything. So that's mostly like Home Out There is the book that like wakes me up, that I'm like stressing out about whatever random question, or I'm constantly taking notes. And I own every book on Langston Hughes I can find at this point.
That's the one you're living inside of.
I'm living inside of. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. And then I wrote a lot of poems in the fall for what eventually would become a book called Deathbeds. It's like horny, sad, dead poems. It's great. It's really, they're so horny. It's just like, it's great. So I would do that. I mean, but I guess I don't know. To me, it makes sense. I guess I would say there are times when I may wake up really early and like work on a poem, and then later in the day work on the memoir. But generally speaking, they're just different modes. So yeah, I don't know. What I like about working on multiple books at once is I'm always doing creative work. If I'm like I said, like the challenge with Home Out there, some of these questions, I have to solve them for myself before I can start writing. And that's really frustrating. So then it's nice that I can be like, well, I can work on this other thing today.
I can work on the People's Project, or I can write a poem. No, I just real quick for that person. The real answer I always say is there's no right way to do this. Anything we say, take what's helpful, leave the rest. Right now, I do have an idea for the next book, and I can feel it like pulling me, but I'm like, no, I need to stay within this book and make this book the best book it can be. But 100%, I will say, even though I only try to work on one book at a time, it doesn't, like, I still clean my, like, the procrastination is real. And so sometimes it's nice if you can procrastinate against one project by just working on it. Like, and that's what you're talking about.
No, it's productive procrastination. I mean,
100%.
Eula Biss was here in the fall and read like a series of essays that are brilliant, but she just works on them when she's not working on like the big, scary book.
This is taken, so I don't work on multiple book projects, but I will always try to have an assigned writing. So, and this is something my wife and I, it's taken a long time because she's like, why are you pitching something to GQ? Your book is due. And I'm like, yeah, but you have to understand, I'll get so stressed out about that I'll actually work on the book a little bit, and then that'll upset me, and then I'll be like, oh, I'm behind on that. And once you start ping-ponging in that way, it's better than reorganizing my sock drawer for the 100th time. You know, like
that's real. I mean, it's because I think at the end of the day, the books have to be a refuge, and they're different types of refuge. And I'm, part of it is I respond to this, everything that's going on. I'm like, by all means, I would love to obsess about this moment in 1933 rather than like checking my phone. Yeah, there is
when things were classically great.
Were so
1933.
Things were so chill. It was a hoot. Yeah. Anything else?
No, you're great.
Oh,
Have a good one.
Thank you.
This is quite a big question.
Oh no.
Good luck. What are so Isaac said people feel strongly about keeping the stories that they believe in, which feels deeply connected to what's going on nationally. What are the ways you feel creative nonfiction can speak to the current political moment?
Okay, so what are the ways that we think creative nonfiction can speak to the current political moment? Well, I'll get us started.
I mean, I can jump in if you want me to.
Yeah.
You've been like, yeah, go for it. I genuinely am wrestling. It's literally one of the things I'm wrestling with in American Dionysus. What are American legends? What is truth? Is there a reality? And I do genuinely believe there is, of course, brass tacks wise. But does that reality matter when certain stories start to overcome our own beliefs? And so I think there's such a need for obviously journalism in this moment, but also stories that tell your own personal truth, because that is why I'm drawn to creative nonfiction. And I said this earlier when I was talking to the students during lunch, but I'll say it again here, which is you are the only person who gets to tell your story. That's it. You get to tell the way that you are either dealing with what's happening right now, or living within what's happening right now, or hiding from what's happening right now. And that is your story to tell. And nobody gets to tell you that you're wrong. They just get to then tell their own version of that story. So the way that creative nonfiction, I'm very loath to say the word help. But the way that creative nonfiction can maybe help you navigate what's happening is figuring out what you are experiencing in real time. And that's something that, if I'm being honest, is probably what drew me to writing in the first place, or even just reading as a kid. I was looking for other people who had had experiences similar to mine. I was looking for proof that I wasn't the first person to experience this. I'll say it real quick. Again, I said this earlier too, but there's a play. It's called History Boys, I believe. It's a British play. It's great. And when I'm butchering the quote, but it's basically the best part about reading is when you see an experience on the page or a feeling on the page or a moment on the page that you felt in your own head, you've never shared with anyone and you thought it was solely your own. And all of a sudden you see that somebody else has experienced. It's like a hand comes out of the book and grabs your own. And I think the more that you tell your own story, especially your unique story, the more moments of comfort you are going to provide for other people. And I think that's true of this moment, but also all moments.
Yeah, I have a general answer that lines up with that, and then a more specific answer for Home Out There. Generally, I believe the mission of creative nonfiction as a form is, as I said, is to deepen our relationship with reality, realities, with truths, with authenticity. It's using creative elements to strengthen that relationship, and that's always important. But this administration in particular is deeply invested in distorting reality and assaulting language itself. This week on Vibe Check, we talk about how you'll notice Elon's starting to do it, and you watch like in a month, everyone in that realm will be talking about the sin of empathy. That like we've become too empathetic and it weakens civilization, which is like wild, So they're trying to distance us from just look at truth, look at news, fake what do we even mean? And when we can't agree on basic facts, when we can't agree on the Constitution, it's so they're kidnapping people, they're kidnapping our neighbors here, and they're using that distortion to do it. And so just as a project, I think creative nonfiction is just healthy. I hope you look up from a page of good creative nonfiction and you feel more real. Like I feel like in like the piece I read when I'm like, my body is mine, that sense of coming back to life, and being a person and showing up for other people. With Home Out There, I think it helps us understand this moment because Black queer people are the key to this country. If you want to understand America, you would do well to listen and learn about Black people and queer people. It's at the heart of everything that is going on. And so, yeah, I think that is another way, just like investing in it. And if you really, it's so funny, the way in which, particularly during the first Trump administration, you would see people be like, oh gosh, they're going to take us back to The Handmaid's Tale. And I'm like, and I have respect for Margaret Atwood. I really do love a lot of her work. Her poem Siren Song is one of the first poems that made me want to write poetry in high school. But all she did was take the history of enslavement and take Black people out of it. That is The Handmaid's Tale. Everything that happens in that book was done during the history of enslavement, particularly to Black women. You know what I mean? So there's this way in which people want the wisdom, but they don't want the Black people who bestow it. And so I what I'm trying to do, and Amani Perry, Kiese Lehman, Ashley C. Ford, Roxanne, there are so many people who are trying to use their writing to say, it's here. Like if you're lost and you're looking at the sky, it's like, girl, look to a Black person. You know what I mean? Like it's there. And I always want to, and Black people look to queer people. And that was actually, to take it back to Audre Lorde, that's where that quote about Langston Hughes, she was addressing a conference of Black women. And she was talking to them about Black women's general homophobia, and that's why she was like, we're part of this as well. And to alienate ourselves from each other just endangers us. So, yeah.
And to pretend that people don't exist is insane.
Also that. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. You and you.
So I'm written a bit of like personal storytelling, and I'm currently working on my first memoir. And something I'm finding is I'm being humbled by like the like, even in previous stories I've written, I'll read them back and be like, wait, I don't know if I've narrated it the same way if I tell the story again. Like, do you grapple with that for both of you, and like, how do you deal with your own memories as they change?
I'm happy to go first again on this one because I grapple with it all the time. One, have you read David Carr's The Night of the Gun? Okay, great, fantastic. If anybody hasn't read David Carr's The Night of the Gun, read David Carr's The Night of the Gun. It grapples with that extraordinarily well. This is what I'll say. Yeah, man, nobody bats 1,000. I did acid when I was 12. You think I think this thing is like working at 100%? 100% not. Like, I have a lot of diaries to pull from. It's helpful. I'll say that if you're going to do this for your whole life, start taking notes now. I won't lie. Twitter was great for that for a very long time. Like it was just like I just tweet stuff that was happening. Now I like go back and be like, what was I doing in 22? Oh, skateboarding and eating burritos. All right, interesting. So there's like leave notes and breadcrumbs for yourself. But the thing that I would say is maybe more important, and other people would probably disagree with me, but forgive yourself. Write the story that you're trying to write. The truth that you know it now, it's gonna change. It's gonna change. But if you want to be 100% accurate and 100% perfect in the way that you view things and think that you're gonna carry that through your entire life, don't write anything, because that's how they're gonna get you. You know, don't leave any breadcrumbs. But if you have a story that you want to tell right now and you are writing it honestly and authentically to the best of your abilities, do it. And then in 10, 20 years, like it might change. Your views on that might change. I mean, this is something that I talk about a lot, not real quick, but if I wrote Dirtbag Massachusetts when I was 25, it would be like, my parents are the worst and I had it so bad. And then I wrote it when I was 35 and I was like, my parents had it pretty tough too. And maybe I feel empathy towards them. And actually I didn't have it that bad, but it's confusing. And the joke I used to make was if I had it at 45, I could maybe forgive their parents too. Because this one, I'm like, the grandparents, fuck them. Now some stuff's happened in my family where I'm like, no, actually I didn't lay into them hard enough. Those grandparents were messed up, you know, like, but like you're never going to be able to tell. So what I would say is just like, don't make an obstacle for yourself. Because that's what it sounds like. You're like, I'm writing my first memoir, but I'm worried that I'm not getting it all right. You're not going to get it all right. But what you can get it is authentically you. And then if somebody has qualms with it, as I've said before, they get to go write their version. And that's this whole game.
Yes, and two things. It's important to remember that you're not writing an autobiography. I don't think you're writing an autobiography. Autobiography has a very different burden. Autobiography, you are supposed to try to get everything. I was born, but this is where my parents were doing, memoir is not just about these experiences. Memoir is about the phenomenon of memory. Mm-hmm. So lean into it. There are passages in How We Fight for Our Lives where I write, it's really high stakes, dramatic scenes. And then there are like, my memory just goes blank. And I talk about why my memory goes blank and the feeling of not being able to remember something. Stitch it in, like make it a part of. Understand you are an unreliable witness and yet you are the best and only witness. Okay, I think that's an interesting dynamic. And then also in terms of, I just, because I always have to go to feminism because it saved my life. Consent, a memoir by Jill Cement I read recently. God, how can I say this in a concise way? She wrote a memoir in the 70s about basically being a teenager and falling in love with her very adult, like 30 years older art teacher. And she wrote it in a very like, this is what I wanted, way. It caused a whole sensation. She married that man and stayed married to him for decades. He died like 5 years ago. And suddenly she has some new feelings about that book. And so Consent is like a forensic memoir. It's fascinating where she goes back even just to the basic like language. And she's like, it's not even necessarily that the facts were wrong. She's like the words, she's even like the adverb I used. It's really interesting. And yeah, it's dynamic. Memory is dynamic. And so I think, yeah, that's why I go to feminism, why I go to queerness, like that, like masculine austerities, like there's the rigidity, but like queerness, femininity, Blackness is very fluid. And I think like, don't try to fight it. I think like dance with it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, one last question and then we're out of here. Thank you all so much.
What is sort of the one thing that you most appreciate about each other's writing?
Oh my God.
Plants.
You monster.
He's wearing the sweatshirt. He's like, I want to see these two cry. I got I got heard promise of crying.
You monster.
And guess what? I went first for the last two.
Dang, you're right. Oh, wow. That's an incredible.
We want quotes.
Yeah. The damn Saeedisms. Say it again. Okay, the quality I most admire in his right. Jesus. I
can go.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I think Isaac is able to write with such compelling empathy for his past selves and for others. And that, yeah, is kind of all, that's kind of the job, like kind of what we're, but also I just think it's so difficult to not self-flagellate. You know what I mean? To not constantly try to justify. It's a very difficult line to thread, but I just think even in that quality, like, you know, writing about Chapman, you know, the moment where like the lice and we all were like, and the way he's able to say, but isn't that kind of beautiful too? You know, there's a sense of both in all of his sentences. You know, he's not making excuses, he's not romanticizing. Yeah, and I guess the only other way I can say that is to say that, God damn it, Justin, who he is to me, to his wife, to our loved ones, is who he is on the page. And I know a great many artists who they are in their art is just not the same, you know, and maybe that's a good thing. But yeah, that's him. Yeah, you bastard.
Also you bastard, because that is kind of, God, I knew I should have jumped up going first. Listen, it's so easy for me to say the poetry. It's so easy for me to say the ways that he writes, the ease with the when you watch a craftsman who's been doing something for as long as Saeed's been doing it, they make it look so easy. And it's beautiful to see the ways in which you don't see the seams in his writing. And that same thing you were just saying about the sentence and the flip, which is, thank you for giving me that. But the ways in which you can just like be talking about one thing, then flow into this other. I mean, the fluidity, it's exactly what you're just talking about in the last answer, that fluidity of flowing into something else and then coming back. And I don't see a single, you know, it's like watching those YouTube videos where it's like a wood craftsman and they don't use any nails. And you're like, how the hell did you do that? Like, that's how it feels. But so that's the easy answer. The easy answer is the beauty of his writing, the sentences. I'm always inspired, and sometimes in a brotherly, competitive way. Sorry, we got to get a little masculine, which is I'm like, God damn it, he said that so good. How can I say something that good? But the back half, which sadly you already said more beautifully. See, is I watch Saeed live his life. It's an honor to get to watch Saeed be the person that he is, but also figure out the person he is becoming constantly. And I think that's what he does on the page so well, is you're watching an evolution, whether it be of ideas, whether it be of understandings, whether it be of his whole person and soul. But I get to watch the behind the scenes of that and see both his Sagittarius self, the fact that he loves the open road, the fact that he loves meeting people, the fact that he is the ferocity, like he calls himself, and then people are like, oh, sometimes you're spiky. It's like, yeah, he's been telling you all for a very long time. But I also get to see the softness and the beauty, and all of that comes out onto the work and onto the page, which is to plagiarize what he just said, is I get to see him be the same exact person he is on the page in real life. And I love him very, very much. Love you. Thank you guys very
Thank
much.
you.
Great last question.
Oh, you monster.
Appreciate you,
monster.
Zoom.
Thank you. It's over here.
Thank you, Harvard. I was pointing
okay,
off.
I thought you were like, thank you.
That one too. No, these people over there.
Thank you all for joining us. And Allison,
Amen.
Christina,
Amen.
Jason. I was
Harvard
just like,
Medical. Thank you.
can I like bring some friends over here? And I hope this has been like helpful and it's like helped me certainly understand a lot of the work. And just so thank you for all of the work, because I know it's not easy and I really appreciate it.
Let's give it a round for them as well.
Woo! Thank you all.
Good luck with your capstones.
True.
Did I do it?
True. Yeah, you did.
all right,
You
all
did.
right.